Well, I always wonder why King's Gambit has not been played oftenly at top level as well as in the World Championship matches. Guess what? Few months back I got my answer. And in today's video, not only you are going to learn one of the most trickiest line against the King's Gambit, but overall you get a surprise weapon against this deadly gambit which you might want to consider in the tournament practice. After e4, e5 and f4, we have the King's Gambit on the table, and the variation I have choose start with d5, considered as a fork-bear counter gambit. Now the main move here is e captures d5. However, at the below 2000, White can try other moves as well. So first, let's check out them and find out how we can refute them. The first move I want to consider is f captures e5. Basically a blunder in the opening, as after just one move, queen check, White can pack his bag and go home. Well, it's true, because if he plays g3, then we have this lovely check, nabbing the rook in the corner. And if White decide to start walking the king in the park, then we have this queen check. And after king to f2 and bishop to c5, more or less, game can be finished at the opening stage. The second move I want to consider is knight to f3. And against all of these sideline moves, we are going to continue with e captures f4, where if White continue with e captures d5, then after knight to f6, we enter into the main line. So the other popular choice is e5, which I am afraid again leads to the opening disaster for White, as Black has a very nice attacking move here, namely g5. So the threat is very obvious. We want to play g4 and then deliver this check, something which White need to address immediately. For example, let's say if they continue with the top choice from the database, namely d4, then Black can execute this plan perfectly with g4, so that if the knight moves, then we can deliver this check and misplace White king. So that is not a good idea. And after g4, majority of the games continue with the piece sacrifice, starting with bishop takes f4. But I don't believe in this, as after e takes f3, queen takes f3, and now the star move, bishop to e6, whereupon Black has a straightforward idea, and I don't see a single compensation for the loss of piece. So this is the reason why White need to address the issue of g4 here. And many of you think that, hang on, he can play h3 and diffuse all Black's threat. Well, guess what? Yup, he can, except one problem, that after knight to h6, our knight find a heaven in the White camp, something White has to live with it for the rest of the game. So all in all, these positions are quite fun to play as a Black. The third move I want to consider is knight to c3, and you know the answer. Yup, taking on f4, where White has two choices. If we continue with knight to f3, stopping our queen check, then Black can simply take on e4, and after knight takes e4, Black emerge with a clear pawn advantage. And on top of everything, there is a big trap here, which goes as follow: queen to e7. So White has to play queen to e2, and after this, knight to c6 sets up an amazing trap that the most popular choice from the database d4 is completely prevent here, as after bishop to f5, white got a completely lost position at the opening stage. Why? Well, the answer is very obvious. White knight get attacked, and when the knight moves, we have this deciding blow, knight to b4, where there is no stopping on c2. So most probably black will munch another pawn and come out as a completely dominating position in this line. The second tactical option white is having here is knight captures d5, allowing this queen check. But after g3 and pawn takes g3, I think it is black who is getting all the fun in this line, as we get some obvious tactical sequence. Knight to f3, attacking the queen. Black plays g2, a check, so white knight has to take it. And when black queen reappears on the board, munching with the rook, white is also delighted because he can deliver this check, and after king to d8 and knight captures 8, we have a very funny position where both the corner rook disappear from the board, but it is black who has the last laugh with this deciding check. So he is going to pick up yet another piece and come out as a complete piece advantage middle game, where after some consolidation and careful play, a full point in the bag. The fourth move I want to consider is d4, a somewhat complicated move, but as I mentioned earlier, we are going to be very consistent with e captures f4, where our threat is queen to h4 check. And if white is foolish enough to play either of this move, let's say e5, then we have this queen check, which more or less force white king to start walking at the opening stage. So nope, that's not a good idea, and accordingly, white should play bishop to f4, stopping our nasty check, except one problem that it cost a vital pawn, which we are more than happy to grab it. And I don't think so you need any other theory from here. Just play some practical moves and dominate the position with a clear pawn advantage. Last but not least, what to do against the move d3. Okay, we are going to take on f4, and after bishop takes f4, we can liquidate the center with d captures e4, whereupon white has two choices. If he routinely capture back, then after the queen exchange, this endgame really favors the black in the view of white has misplaced king, and he has an isolated pawn on the e file, which can be a clear-cut target in the upcoming endgame. So nope, that's not the right idea in this position. The most accurate choice is knight to c3, allowing black to take on d3, so at least you get some development of the pieces. But black is not a fool, and accordingly, I think the correct response is you continue with bishop to b4, pin down this knight, and concentrate on your own piece development. A sample line can go like this: queen to d2, stopping black to give white a double pawn. Okay, we are going to play knight to f6, trying to castle on the king side. And when the opposite side castle scenario happens, we are going to see a very important tactical pattern which goes as follows: a3, bishop takes c3, queen takes c3, and now you play knight to d5, so that after queen d2, knight takes f4, queen takes f4, and finally queen to d5 with the clear intention to penetrate on the white queen side. Well, in the Lichess database, one of the high-profile games goes as follows. White plays king to b1. Black plays bishop to e6, renewing the threat. So white is forced to play c4. But after queen to f5, when the queens are getting exchanged, if you see the end result, yup, the material is balanced, but the most important feature is this isolated weakness on e4, which can be a clear-cut target in the upcoming endgame. Okay, so with this small video, I hope I have cleared all of your doubts that why white should play here e captures d5, where in the next part you are going to see the modern theory on this line with e captures f4, threatening queen to h4. So white has to play knight to f3, and after knight to f6, we reach to the most important junction of this gambit, where, as I have shown by the arrows, these are the popular choices by white. And kindly watch most important part 2 to get the full knowledge of this line with some obviously cool tricks and traps. Thank you for watching this video, and feel free to like, subscribe and comment.